Every physician, every trainer, every well-meaning neighbor has told you the same thing. Walk more. Walk daily. Walk 10,000 steps. The advice is not wrong. It is simply incomplete in a way that costs you, specifically, the one adaptation your legs most need as you age. Not endurance, not cardiovascular efficiency, but the contractile strength of the muscles holding your knees upright, keeping you off the floor, and deciding whether a stumble becomes a fall. Walking forward, performed faithfully for months, produces minimal increases in leg strength. The University of Massachusetts documented this in a cohort that completed 10,000 steps daily for 6 months. Cardiovascular health improved, endurance improved, leg strength, the variable that predicts whether you rise from a chair unassisted at 75, barely moved. The direction your legs were never trained to travel activates the quadriceps at 40% greater intensity. It fires glutes that forward motion leaves sleeping. It closes a gap in muscular architecture that no amount of forward walking will ever reach. The mirror knows first. In 2019, research published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research by Huang and colleagues examined the neuromuscular demands of backward locomotion across age-stratified cohorts. What they found was not a marginal difference. Backward walking at matched speeds recruited the quadriceps and posterior chain at intensity levels that forward walking, even at elevated pace, could not replicate. The mechanism was not effort. The mechanism was architecture. The body moving backward is a body denied its habitual motor program. Every automated shortcut the nervous system has built across decades of forward motion is suddenly unavailable. The muscles must think. The joints must negotiate. The lab calls it normal locomotion. The tissue knows the difference. The first mechanism is architectural. Your quadriceps, that broad, layered column of muscle running the full length of the anterior thigh, responsible for extending the knee against gravity, against stairs, against the slow descent into a chair, are active during forward walking, but not maximally. The nervous system, having automated the gait cycle over thousands of repetitions, allows the quadriceps to contribute what is needed and nothing more. When you walk backward, this economy collapses. The foot lands toe first. The knee, now required to control descent before the foot has committed its full surface to the ground, loads the quadriceps eccentrically, demanding a sustained contraction through a range that forward motion never reaches. Research from the University of Calgary measured this directly. Backward walking at equivalent speed generated 40% greater quadriceps activation. A muscle being maintained, a muscle being built. These are not the same thing. The second mechanism is posterior. Your glutes, the largest contractile mass in the body, responsible for hip extension, pelvic stability, and the generation of forward power, are active during forward walking, but not through the range that builds them. The hip never fully extends in standard forward gait. The glute fires partially, releases, fires again, never reaching the full contraction that signals the muscle to adapt. Backward walking changes this completely. Each step backward demands a hip extension that forward motion structurally prevents. The trailing leg pressing back and down. The glute, an organ of propulsion you have never watched work, cannot easily feel, and have likely been sitting on since breakfast, contracting to its mechanical limit with every stride. Research from the University of Wisconsin quantified this at 50% greater glute activation during backward walking compared to forward walking at the same speed. The glutes that were sleeping through your morning walk are now doing the hardest work they have been asked to perform in years. The third mechanism is neural. Forward walking does not ask the brain to attend. The gait cycle, heel strike, loading, mid-stance, push-off, has been delegated to subcortical structures since childhood, freed from conscious supervision so that attention can go elsewhere. Backward walking removes this delegation entirely. The foot cannot confirm what is behind it. The eyes cannot verify the path. The vestibular system, the fluid-filled architecture of the inner ear that tells the brain where the body is in space, must process a direction it was never trained to trust. Your cerebellum, your Purkinje cell circuits, the climbing fiber error signals driving synaptic reorganization with every step. The deep cerebellar nuclei, building a motor program where none has ever existed. Research from the University of Zurich documented this structurally. Participants who practiced backward walking for 15 minutes, 5 days per week for 8 weeks, showed measurable increases in gray matter density in the cerebellum, the structure that decides, in the fraction of a second before a fall, whether you catch yourself. The brain was not merely adapting, it was building. What the nervous system had been borrowing from forward walking, quietly, without announcement, had never been enough. There's a structure inside your knee, cartilage, synovial lining, the soft architecture of a joint designed for load, that you have never seen, never touched, and cannot feel until it announces itself on a staircase. By then, the tissue has been negotiating its own erosion for years. The question is never whether the joint can be spared. It is whether the muscles surrounding it can be asked to carry more of what the joint has been carrying alone. Why this matters more after the age of 55 is a question of arithmetic, and the arithmetic is unforgiving. Quadriceps strength declines at approximately 1 to 2% per year after 40, accelerating after 60 in the absence of targeted resistance. Glute activation measured in sedentary adults over 60 shows chronic under-recruitment, the muscle present, the neural signal insufficient. Balance, measured as stable single-leg stance, deteriorates by 12% per decade, with the rate itself accelerating after the 7th decade. Walking speed, which researchers at the University of Pittsburgh identified as among the most reliable predictors of 10-year survival in adults over 65, declines without the muscular foundation to sustain it. The mirror knows first. The lad confirms it later, if you know which numbers to ask for. The tragic irony is precise. The patients most often told simply to walk more are the patients for whom forward walking alone has already reached its adaptive ceiling. Reducing exertion below comfortable levels without addressing muscular support of the knee improves cardiovascular markers, while leaving the structural problem untouched. One risk falls, the other compounds quietly, across years, in tissue no standard blood panel measures. On the southern coast of Japan, in fishing villages where the terrain moves in constant incline, and the body is never given flat ground to automate itself upon, older adults have for generations walked paths that demand muscular negotiation with every step. The ground does not cooperate. The muscles do not coast. Research examining activity patterns in traditional Okinawan communities found that the functional leg strength of adults in their 7th and 8th decades exceeded copulation norms for individuals 20 years younger. Not because of deliberate exercise prescription, but because the terrain refused to make movement easy. Every step the nervous system cannot automate is a step that builds. The modern flat surface, the sidewalk, the treadmill, the hallway, is a gift to the cardiovascular system. It is a quiet subtraction from the muscular one. The protocol is not complex. Begin on a flat, unobstructed surface, a running track, an empty hallway, smooth ground and morning quiet. Start with 5 minutes of backward walking at half your normal forward pace. Slower than you expect, more demanding than it appears. The first sessions will feel cognitively effortful in a way that forward walking does not. This is the cerebellum working. Add 1 minute per week until you reach 15 to 20 minutes per session. Once the movement feels coordinated, once the foot finds the ground without hesitation, and the arms swing in natural opposition, opposite arm to opposite leg, engaging the trunk, increase speed. Then add incline. Walking backward up a gentle hill loads the quadriceps eccentrically against gravity, compressing weeks of adaptation into a single session. 5 days per week, is the threshold at which research documents meaningful strength change. Fewer than 4 sessions, and the adaptive signal disperses before the tissue can answer it. The knee pain that stairways announce, the wobble that single-leg stance reveals, the chair you rise from more slowly than you did 5 years ago, these are not the problem. They are the report of a problem that began quietly, in muscle that was never fully asked, in a direction the body was never trained to travel. The quadriceps building, the glutes no longer sleeping, the cerebellum generating what it was never given reason to generate before. The knee finding support in surrounding tissue for the first time in years. Walking speed improving not from effort, but from a stronger foundation. The mirror knowing before the lab does. A muscle that forward walking left coasting. The joint that a different force vector finally spares. The neural program the brain was never given reason to build. The adaptive ceiling that 10,000 daily steps never broke through. What the body had been asking for, quietly, in the direction you were never walking.